Hi everyone, Julie Koenig here from Creative Craftworks and Absolute Soap. I'm here to do From No Sale to Wholesale, Part 2. Stephanie Falsetta did Part 1, telling everyone how she has gotten her specialty wholesale accounts and some tips of the trade. I am here to tell you how I've gotten mine. There is no right way or wrong way. I'm just here to tell you what worked for me. A little bit about myself. I started out making soy candles back in 2002, and a couple years after that I started making other bath and body products, lotion, candle or soap, all the other bath and body products. And the reason I got into soap making is because whenever I went to the craft shows with my candles, I was always seeking out the handcrafted soap makers and buying their soap. I was intimidated to start working with lye, but once I made that decision to do it, I never regretted it. It's not scary, as you all know, because you're probably all soap makers or going to be soap makers. You just follow the safety instructions and it's just fabulous. It's very addicting. I'm sure you can all agree with that. So anyway, a couple years ago, well actually several years ago, I opened a storefront because that was my dream. And I had the storefront for about 2.5 years. It wasn't in a real high traffic area, but I wanted a place where I could make my products to get it out of my home and also have a small retail area in the front. So this was the best of both worlds. I paid rent, I justified getting my products out of the house, and I had retail to pay for the storefront. And that worked, except for me personally, I realized that it wasn't for me. Even though it was my dream for many, many years, I struggled with the low foot traffic because I like to be busy. So I want a lot of traffic coming in, keeping me busy, moving. It wasn't enough to justify having full-time employees. So what I found is I was managing the storefront and making products all at the same time. So as you can imagine, I'd be making products and someone would walk in and I would have to stop. Well, we all know that there are certain products that you just can't stop. Like if you're right in the middle of soap making and you've just added the lye to your oils and someone walks in the door. Can't stop. So I decided that I was better off just being a maker. That was really my dream, not owning a store. So I collaborated with my brother, who is very, very talented, and he built a shop on my property. It's a 2.5 car garage so that I didn't have to go the commercial route. So my property is still considered residential, but I built a 2.5 car garage with only one garage door, and that is my shop. I am so proud of my shop. I am from Wisconsin, so obviously in order to work in my shop year-round and deal with the cold weather, I had him put in-floor heat. And then I have a window air conditioner for the summer to keep the humidity and heat out of the shop. And I just love it out there. So for me, that's what works best. I love keeping busy. I love being the maker, and that's what I decided to stick with. Plus, while I'm working, I can have a load of laundry going in the house. I can go out there and work. When I get my soap poured, I can come in and put the laundry in the dryer. I can let my dogs out. It's just wonderful. That is what works for me. So because I no longer have a retail outlet other than the few shows that I do a year and my website, I need the wholesale accounts and the private label accounts. I need those big orders coming in because I don't know about you, but my website brings in orders, but not huge amounts. Of course, I could be better at marketing, but that's not my strong point. So I seek the big orders. How do I do that? Well, that's what I'm here to talk about today. How do you find the wholesalers? My very first wholesale account came to me. I was just maybe 2 years into making candles. I started with soy candles, but I also had some paraffin candles mixed in because you can do so many fun things with them. And I was making the chunk paraffin candles. So about 2 years after I began making candles, I was doing a craft fair in Madison, Wisconsin. And a lady came running through my booth and pointed to my chunk pillar candles and said, "Do you wholesale these?" Well, I hadn't wholesaled anything at that point. But of course I said yes, don't we all? We never say no. And she said, "Do you have a card?" So I gave her a card and she said, "Okay, I'll be in touch." And out she went. Well, come to find out, she was on her way to work. She owned what they call a head shop in Madison, Wisconsin. I, at the time, didn't know what that was, and you'll have to look it up if you want to know what I'm talking about. But anyway, she called me a few weeks later, explained that she was on her way to work. She just knew the show was there. It was the first year. She stopped in really quick just to see if there was anything there that she wanted to carry in her store. She saw my pillar candles, grabbed my card, and out the door she went. So she ended up being a very, very good wholesale customer of mine, ordering all the paraffin chunk pillars that I offered and the votives that I made. And I was with her for quite a few years. She ended up selling the store, and the new owners decided not to carry candles. We've all been there. That's just the name of the game. You win some, you lose some. Some stores close, some stores just change their merchandise. But anyway, that was my very first wholesale account. So I had to learn a lot on the fly because I can't say no. So my first experience was the customer coming to me. And then after that, I realized I really like doing these larger orders because you can buy more supplies at one time and get cheaper prices, save on shipping. I can stay in my shop longer and make larger batches instead of all these teeny tiny little batches. I love making the bigger batches, sticking to one thing for a longer amount of time. So that was my first one. Trade shows is another avenue for getting wholesale accounts. I did my first trade show within driving distance, so I did one in Chicago, Illinois. That was a great experience. I would not necessarily recommend doing one where you have to travel a long distance and fly. My first one was within driving distance. I was able to take all of my merchandise in my Tahoe and drive down there, get a hotel room, drive back. Didn't have to worry about how I was going to get everything on an airplane or ship it all down there. Now, I will say one thing to watch out for, and I ran into this at the Chicago market. It is union operated. So that meant that I could not take any of my own merchandise to my booth. So you have to pull in, you have to wait for the union workers to unload the merchandise onto their carts and get it to your booth. Same happened for teardown. So I was able to tear down my booth in record time, and I sat and I sat and I sat because they would not let you bring in any of your own carts. They would not let you carry out your own merchandise. They had a guard standing by the elevator, not letting you get down with merchandise in your hand. So I sat for 3 hours in my booth that was all packed up, waiting for a worker to come and haul my merchandise down so I could put it in my truck and go home. Well, Chicago is 3 hours away from where I live in Wisconsin. So in the time that I waited for the union workers, and I'm not for or against union, has nothing to do with that, just something to watch out for. In the time that I waited for them to come to my booth and load up my merchandise, I could have been home. So that was real frustrating. I never did that market again, but I don't regret doing it because it was a great experience. I did end up getting some accounts out of that. I think only 3, which is fine. It's 3 more than I had before, but I went for the experience. The trade shows that I really enjoyed were the ones that were held in Orlando, Florida in January. So the weather's 50 degrees, everyone's bundled up in winter coats, and I'm walking around in short sleeve shirt and capris and asking the workers at the restaurants if I can eat outside while everyone is inside. Yeah, Orlando in January when you're from Wisconsin is awesome. So that trade show was put on by a company called wholesalecrafts.com. Wholesalecrafts.com. However, they did just sell, and their name is now IndieMe.com. So INDIEME.com. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But anyway, so I did that trade show for 4 or 5 years in a row. At the time, it cost $1,800 for a 10 by 10 booth. Now it costs $2,600 for a 10 by 10 booth. And it's no longer in Orlando, it's in Philadelphia. So Philadelphia in January versus Orlando in January just didn't do it for me. So I have not been doing that show. They also have one in Las Vegas. I've been thinking about doing that one, but I've honestly been busy enough that I haven't decided to put that money into doing another trade show right now, but it would probably be one that I would consider. So those types of trade shows can be very expensive. Like I said, the current fee for a 10 by 10 booth is $2,600. And then you have to consider how you are going to get there and how you're going to get your merchandise there. And are you going to ship everything? Are you going to buy on the fly? And what I mean by that is you can get by with not shipping a table. You can either rent one from the organization that is putting on the trade show, or because they're so expensive when you do it that way, you can just go to a Walmart or Target and spend maybe $30 on a fold-up table and do it when you get there and leave it when you leave. Some of the trade shows charge, hundreds of dollars for a table or for electricity. So you do have to check into all that. Sometimes just the basic electricity isn't covered in that $2,600. Sometimes it's extra. So you have to check into all that before you decide to make that investment. It's a great investment if you're ready for it. It really is. The experience is awesome. But trade shows aren't like craft fairs. So you are standing, please don't sit. So you're standing there all day long, usually for 3 days. So, you have to wear comfortable shoes, take lots of water with you. You can find all that information online. There's so many things you got to be careful about and take care of yourself because it can be very long days. But anyway, so you have the people coming by your booth just like you do at craft fairs, but you don't sell there. You are taking orders, hopefully. A lot of times you don't take any orders, and that's normal. But if you're not used to it, it's depressing. It really is. So you're standing around for 3 days and you're talking to hundreds of people and nobody orders. But they are taking your information. So you need to have lots of information available. And by that I mean business cards, line sheets, samples. I always gave out a good size sample. Not, I would say like a third size bar, not just a sliver. You can't do anything with a sliver. So a third size bar, and I would put it in a cello bag with my business card and a little ribbon around it. And then I would staple it to my line sheet. And people would have all that in their hand in one place and take it away. Going back to the sample soap, like I said, I give a decent sized sample, about a third of a bar, and a lot of these shoppers, they'll go through more than one day. So the first day, they're just walking through, checking on everything, just seeing what's there, taking people's information, and then the next day, they go back and revisit the booths that they decided were of interest to them. I had a customer come back to my booth the second day and thank me for giving them such a nice size sample of my product. And she went on to explain that most soap makers only hand out a small sliver, and it wasn't enough to even get her through a shower. And she took my third bar sample, took a shower with it, and had plenty in order to judge what type of product it was and the quality. So please, if you learn anything from me about trade shows, if you're giving out soap samples, please make sure it's a decent, usable size sample. Same with lotions. I have a little 1/2 ounce plastic container that I got from SKS Packaging. It's perfect. You put a small label on there. It costs you literally nothing to hand these out. And sometimes I would throw those in with a soap in matching fragrance. Give them enough of a sample for them to make a, wise decision on whether it's a good product or not. You want them to love your product, so make it worth it. Okay, so enough about that. More things to consider when going to trade shows out of state. So not only do you have the booth fee, you have the cost of your samples and line sheets. You also need to consider whether you're going to fly or drive. Now, I drove to one in New Jersey from Wisconsin, yes, but Florida, I always flew. It was, it was kind of a vacation, January in Florida. But anyway, you're going to have your hotel costs. You're going to have the cost of transportation, whether you fly or drive. But the good thing is you don't have to take all the products you own. You take one of every product that you are offering as wholesale. So what I did to make it easier for me, instead of taking 1 cent of every bar of soap and 1 cent of, all my cents in the lotion and all my cents in, other products, candles, whatever you're taking, I made sure I have 1 cent of everything in a product. So if I took cedar and saffron in a soap, I wouldn't take it in a lotion or a candle. If I took cranberry in a candle, I wouldn't take it in soap. So I had at least 1 cent in something for the customer to smell. So if they said, do you have sandalwood soap? Oh, I didn't bring the sandalwood soap, but I brought it in lotion, and it's the same fragrance. You see what I mean? So if you offer 20 fragrances of soap and you offer the same in lotion and candles, just take 1 sandalwood in something so that they have something to smell. And that's how you can take less but still have everything. Your customers at the trade show want prices visible to them. They kind of want to do a drive-by or a walk-by, and they want to see, they want to glance and see. Sometimes you only get a few seconds to catch a customer because they're walking past and just looking over. I'm sure you've seen yourself doing that. We do it in the store all the time. So you want it to grab their attention. You want their prices visible for them to see. I just use little cards next to them. You can just do little tent cards. You can have them, standing up on something cute, but make the prices visible. You don't want them to have to walk into your booth and pick things up, turn them over to find prices. And your prices need to be your wholesale prices. That's what they're expecting. So if my candles wholesale for $6, that is the price that I showed at my trade show. I don't show my retail prices. We talk about retail prices with them. When they stop in our booth, they can double the price and sell them for $12. Which brings me to another thought, and I'm really not like yelling out squirrel here. I'm trying not to be all over the page, but that reminds me. If you sell a candle, say, for $6, and your stores are going to expect to double that price, at least double. So assume that your wholesalers are going to sell it for $12. Do not offer it on your website for $10.99. You don't want to undersell your wholesalers. You don't want your wholesale customers to see who made it. Creative Craftworks made this candle. Then go on my website and see that they can get it on my website for $10.99, but it's going to cost them $12 to buy it in the store. You don't want to steal your customers from your wholesalers. I want my wholesalers to sell the merchandise so they continue to order from me. So right now, and of course the price will go up, I'm sure, because everything's going up. But right now, I'm wholesaling my soy candles for $8. I mean $6. Yes, $6. Most of the stores sell them for $12. On my website, they are $12.99. Plus, the customers have to pay shipping unless they qualify for free shipping. So it is worth it for the customers to continue buying it from my wholesalers. I want to keep them in business because they keep me in business. Okay, so enough about that. Your product displays, you can ship your product display down. I have done that. I shipped the displays, and then I was able to get all of my products in suitcases. If you fly Southwest, you get 2 free bags, and I got all of my merchandise in my suitcases because of the tip that I just gave you a few minutes ago. So all those expenses you have to consider when you go to a trade show. The positive is not only do you only need to take one of each instead of everything you make, you get orders after the fact. A lot of the shoppers are going to the trade shows gathering information. Then they go back to their store. They make their plans for the year, what they want to carry, what they don't want to carry. Maybe they have business partners they need to consult with. They make their decisions, and then you start seeing orders. Doing the same trade show more than one year, people start looking for you. They want to see what you have new this year. Especially in our business, we're all about smell. People want to touch, they want to see, they want to smell, and it's hard to do that on a website. So for those 4 or 5 years that I did that trade show, I would see people coming back, and every year I did it, I ended up getting more and more orders. They get to see your product, they get to touch it, smell it, and that's what sells them. Like I said, they're slower moving than craft fairs, so you can stand there all day, not make a single sale, and get all depressed. Don't. Just keep your chin up, keep smiling, keep talking to people, handing out those packets of brochures and samples and your business card, and the orders will come. They just may come later. How else do you get wholesale accounts? Well, word of mouth is awesome. You get your customers from your craft shows, going to stores and talking to people they know, store owners they know, and they love your products. Oh, you should carry Creative Craftworks products because I buy their products at the craft fair every year and they're awesome. So word of mouth is fabulous. Your friends, oh my gosh, your friends and acquaintances in the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild. If you get somebody asking if you wholesale bath bombs and you've never made a bath bomb, don't plan on making one, but you know someone that makes one because you're all part of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild, tell them, I know someone who makes bath bombs. I would be happy to give your information to them. And do that. Take that information. Give it to your Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic maker friend that does bath bombs and say, hey, this company is looking to wholesale bath bombs. I don't make them. Here's their information. Do you want to reach out and get a hold of them? I have gotten wholesale accounts because my friends in the Soap Guild have referred them to me because they don't make candles, but I do. It's amazing. It's amazing. Just share that information. Get it out there. Keep your friends in the Soap Guild in the loop. Think about each other. When you don't do something and they do, share with them. The Soap Guild website is a must. Get your business directory up there. Get it up there. What are you waiting for? Some of my biggest accounts, in fact, both of my biggest private label accounts have come from my directory listing on the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild's website. People are searching and they want reputable handcrafted makers. How much more reputable can you be than a member of the Soap Guild? Because they assume you're probably insured, which I hope you all are. They may see that you're certified, which is another plus, another notch in your belt, makes you look good and stand out. So whatever you do, get your directory listing up on the Soap Guild's website. It's free. It's free. How good is that? It doesn't get any better. So my largest private label account found me on my Soap Guild directory. And I get this cold call, and this woman had this strong British accent, and I'm like, oh, here we go, another spam. I hate those. But anyway, so she's like, oh, is this Julie? Yes, it is. Is this Creative Craftworks? Yes, it is. And I'm like, maybe not the most pleasant because I'm like, here we go. And she starts talking, and then I start becoming a little more interested. And the more we chatted, the more I realized this might be the real thing. So, of course, I got all of her information. After the call, I looked her up. Legitimate. And I'm telling you, it's the best thing that's happened to me. She has been ordering from me for, I think, at least 4 years. Minimum is 10,000 pieces. I have had orders as large as 25,000 pieces. And she is a middle person. She's in the middle, and she got an account from a large MLM, multi-level marketing makeup company. So I make one of their products. I'm not at liberty to say which company, but the product I make is in their catalog, which is worldwide. And I am very proud of that. Very, very proud. And it was all because of my directory listing. And, I had to up my business practices and my equipment. I ended up buying a Groen, Groen, steam kettle off eBay. It was supposed to be a 40-quart steam kettle for melting my oils. I was originally purchasing it to make hot process soap. When I received it, instead of 40 quart, it ended up being a 40 gallon. But it was a blessing in disguise, because had I just had the 40 quart, I would not be able to melt as many oils as I do. And so now I can use the 40 gallon melter for these large orders. And like I said, a blessing in disguise. It all happens for a reason. And luckily I got it for the same price as a 40 quart. It just happened to be a 40 gallon and take up a ton more room. But it's awesome. So I invested in that. I invested in a, I guess it's like a lotion pouring contraption, but it's got like a big funnel at the top, and I can just push on a foot pedal, and the liquid goes through it and pre-measures it based on what I tell it. So if I'm doing 2-ounce containers or 6-ounce containers, I just push a button and it pre-measures. So I can do large production with that. And I will put the name of the company as well as the company for the kettle in the notes so that you can refer to it, because I can't think of the name of my pouring machine right off the bat. But anyway, that was a $5,000 investment. It's the best thing I ever did. The first order I received from this company was for 5,000 pieces, and I poured them all by hand, and I could hardly feel my neck because you're constantly looking down at the scale, and it was too much. And I said, if I ever get another order from this company that is 5,000 or more, I'm going to have to look at larger equipment. And the very next order after the 5,000 order was 25,000. So that $5,000 I invested in that pouring machine has paid for itself all over again. The other thing I had to invest in was a commercial blender. And again, that commercial stick blender, I can't think of the name of it right off the top of my head, but I will put that in my notes as well. So you'll have the stick blender, the kettle that I use to melt oils, my pouring contraption, and the other thing I had to invest in was a stamper. The stamper is for putting the batch number on the containers, and the containers are plastic. So the one I got, you can switch the ink cartridge out, and there's an ink cartridge for porous printing and an ink cartridge for non-porous printing. That printer cost me $2,500, and the ink usually only lasts through one batch, not because it doesn't have enough ink in it, but it dries out very quickly. So no matter how careful I am, when there's a couple months in between those orders, it just tends to dry out fast. So those ink cartridges are anywhere from $120 to $180 each. And you figure when it only lasts through, a few months, it's very expensive. So make sure if you go that route, or if your company requires it like mine did, they wanted them stamped versus another label, make sure that you include those costs into your pricing. That's very important because it is very expensive and it's an investment, but a good one. So I'll put all that information in the notes that you'll be able to print out for future reference. And speaking of notes, I have to look at mine so I know where I'm at. Okay, so I'll just quickly mention reps. If you are interested in finding a rep to go out and promote your products, I know absolutely nothing about it. So I told you that I would just go over that really quickly, and that's about all I have to say because I don't know anything about reps. I've never checked into it. I know they get commissions, but I don't know if they get commissions forever on an account they find you, or just an initial commission, but those are things that you'll need to look up. And unfortunately, I'm not the person to help you with that, so sorry. How else do you contact possible wholesalers? If you have someone in mind, if you were traveling and you see some stores you think you might want your products in, there are a few ways. You can snail mail them. You can get some stuff put together and send them out via the post office, via regular mail. One thing with that is it's easily opened, read, and tossed, or not even read, just opened and tossed. And sometimes you can send out hundreds of them with no response. So, it's an initial investment of printing your information and the stamps and cost of envelopes, but it's a cheap way to get the message out there. Just be prepared not to hear anything back. You can later follow up with all the ones that you sent the mail to. Just say, hey, I sent some information out to you. I was in your store or saw your store listed online, and I hope you received it. Did you get a chance to look at it? Now, some of them, just so they don't have to admit that they threw it away, may just listen to what you have to say. So you may get your foot in the door that way. Chances are, like I said before, they want to see your product, they want to smell it, they want to hold it, so that might not be the best way. You could cold contact, call them. I would suggest doing that versus just walking into the store and talking to them. However, I have done that, and I'll explain that in just a second. But I would recommend calling them just so you can set up a time that's convenient for them, and then you can tell them you will bring in full-size products for them to see. And then also take some smaller samples that you can leave, because you do want to leave something besides just paper information. You want something they can use, something they can try. If you sell lotion, you want them to try it so they know how it feels on your skin. On their skin, not your skin. That would be just weird. But anyway, so I would recommend calling and trying to set something up. But I'm going to tell you how I got one of my other wholesale accounts. I was on a motorcycle. Yes, I ride motorcycle, and it's almost time to ride here in Wisconsin. It's getting there. But anyway, I was on a motorcycle on a country road just 10 miles from my house, and I looked over, I saw a sign that this little country schoolhouse was being transformed into a shop. What do you call them when they take old furniture, refurbished furniture. It said opening soon. So I'm like, oh my God, it's so close to my house. I wonder if they have any candle makers yet, or soap makers, or all the other stuff that I make. So I turned around and I pulled in, and I went in. They're brand new, not even really hardly any merchandise. They're just getting the building ready. And the owner was there, and I talked to her, and I said, hey, I was just driving by, and I noticed you're opening soon. I am just 10 miles down the road. Do you have any soap and candle makers yet? And she says, I don't. I've been in contact with one, and they never call me back. And I'm like, really? Well, here I am. And so she's asking about my product. I had nothing to leave her because I was in my motorcycle. I wasn't expecting this. And she said, I am so interested. She said, come by, give me some information, show me some of your products. And she said, because the other people haven't gotten back to me, if I like what I see, you're in. So I was in. The very first order was consignment, which I personally don't care for, mainly because most of my consignment accounts weren't close, and I got burned on one and had to take them to small claims, and it wasn't fun. I don't like doing that. But this one, 10 miles away from me, and that was my foot in the door. So the first order was consignment. I did tell them at the time, keep in mind that if these sell well for you and you're still interested in carrying my product, you can make more by wholesaling. So they were consigning my product and receiving 30%. They sold my product easily, and the very next order, and from that time on, was wholesale. So 30% commission or 50% wholesale, they went wholesale on the second order. And I've been with them for 7 years. And they just sold their business. The name is changing. The new owner was just in my shop yesterday and walked off with 4 dozen candles, and I have orders for lotions and soaps. So the new owner is carrying my product as well. So that's been a very long-term wholesale account, and just because I turned my motorcycle around and went back and talked to them. So sometimes you can just approach them in person. You just never know. But again, and I want to stress this, because that very large private label account I have for the makeup company and this account that I just spoke about, both times people didn't get back to them. This very large private label account that I have, when I asked her how she heard about me, she said she found the Soap Guild's website, and she found me on there. And she said she had contacted a lot of people through the Soap Guild, and people weren't getting back to her. And now again, is it because she had this very strong British accent? People thought she was calling from overseas and didn't get back to her. I don't know. But I stuck with her long enough to answer her questions, get her information, and realize that it was legit. My other private label maker, they order 1,000 bars of soap at a time, and right now I am formulating their 4th bar, and they always order 1,000 bars of each of those. And they also found me through the Soap Guild, and they also said that they would get so far into the process and people would stop responding. Now with theirs in particular, their products go overseas. And so they were very needy for information from me. And I had never had to provide as much information to a wholesaler as I do to them. But I stuck with it, and I researched, and I asked questions online through the Soap Guild's Facebook page because I was running into things I had never done before. They are sending their products overseas. And the overseas market requires paperwork on everything. They require paperwork on every single ingredient, and they require, final paperwork from you, the maker. And I just stuck with them. And once I got it all, it's easy. I mean, it takes time, but once you realize where you have to go and what you have to look for all this information, the first time's the hardest, and then after that it just becomes easier. But she said that as they asked for paperwork, the people they were working with just fell off, so they would just contact someone else, and then they would fall off and eventually stop responding. So I guess my advice to you is, if you really want these accounts, you just got to keep at it. If they ask for something and you don't know what they're talking about, go online and Google it. And you may have to switch suppliers. I have had to change a lot of suppliers through this process because not all suppliers provide the information that the overseas market is requiring. So it is a lot of work up front, but boy, once you have those orders, it is amazing. And feel free to reach out to me after the fact too. When you go through this video and you go through my notes, if you still have questions, you can always reach out to me. If I don't know, I'll tell you. I'll never make anything up because I'm not shy about saying that I don't know something, like reps. I don't know anything about reps. Okay, now I have to look at my notes because otherwise I'm just gonna be like a squirrel. Oh, chamber events. If you belong to your local chamber, I used to belong to my local chamber when I was still working my other job, and I was actually in the city because I live out in the country. So you would get a 30 to 60 second time frame where you could give an elevator speech. And if you haven't heard of an elevator speech, it is, like I say, 60 seconds to say everything you want about your business. So the best thing is to get as many words in there as you can so people know what you offer and get it all done in 60 seconds. I actually think I wrote mine down. Okay, so this is the one I used to give. All right, so bear with me because I have to read it because I haven't done it for so long I don't remember. But anyway, here's 60 seconds or less. Hi, I'm Julie from Creative Craftworks. I specialize in handcrafted soy candles, soap, lotion, and other bath and body products. In addition to my website and storefront, I provide wholesale and private label pricing in addition to fundraising opportunities. There, done. That was probably 20 to 30 seconds. But all the words I got in there that I wanted people to hear. I wanted them to hear candles, soap, lotion, bath and body. I wanted them to hear website, storefront, which I don't have a storefront anymore. I wanted them to hear wholesale, private label, fundraiser. And I got all that in so quick. I would say it one more time, but I know you can go back and listen to it again. That's the joy of having videotape recording. Okay, so I won't go through it again. All right. The other way you can contact wholesalers is by email. Email is so easy to delete, and I almost guarantee you they're not going to get it. They might if you make your subject line appealing enough, but chances are a business owner, I don't know about you, but I go through emails and I just delete. So chances are they're not going to read it if you send them an email. But again, you may get one or two. It's worth it if you want to try it, but it's probably not the best way to get an account. Okay, what else do I need to talk about? What do I need to know about wholesale orders? So, you've gotten all this information about how to get wholesale accounts, and there's so many more out there. There's places like Fair, Etsy used to have an Etsy wholesale. There's IndieMe.com that I talked about. So there are a lot of online venues that you can subscribe to or become a member of or pay a percentage of a fee to them. Those are all great if they work for you. The IndieMe.com I've been a member of for probably 10 years, maybe. That works great for me. It's an investment. I think you get a deal on your first year. But for me, it's $495 a year. They have you set up like a website, so you build your website on their platform. And if you do their trade show, they waive the $495. So you get that year free. But like I mentioned before, you do have that expense of the trade show. But, it's like getting $500 off the trade show. So for those years that I did their trade show, then that $495 was waived for the year. They also have advertising above and beyond that website that you build on their platform. So you can take advantage of that too and get your products out there on a more regular basis. So those are some other avenues. So what do you need to wholesale? There's a lot of things you need to think about. You need to think about if you're going to require a minimum order. So usually at the trade shows, I would waive the minimum order because people just want to place an order to try your stuff. And I had confidence in my product. So if they wanted to place a $50 order and get a couple bars of soap and a couple candles and a couple lotions before they stocked their store with them, I was fine with that. So I waived the minimum for the trade shows. And most people do, so don't get too carried away if you're going to require a minimum. To require $250 minimum or a $500 minimum at a smaller scale trade show where you're marketing mostly to family-owned boutiques, $250 might be a big investment for them when they don't know your product. So that's why I waived my minimum at trade shows. I wanted them to try it and then stock their store. So are you going to carry a minimum dollar amount, say $100 minimum, or are you going to require them to buy so many of each product? So a 6-bar minimum of your energy soap, or a 5 lotion minimum of your 8 ounce and a 5 lotion minimum of your 2 ounce. So you can do minimum quantities or you can do minimum dollar amount. I just stick with a minimum dollar amount. It just works for me. You can do the minimum quantity and then have your case packs made up. Get boxes that fit 6 or 12 and have them made up and labeled and on your shelf and ready to grab. For me, I just prefer the minimum dollar amount regardless of how many of each product they want. So those are 2 different ways you can do your minimums. You want to make sure your minimum order is high enough to make it worth your time, but not so high that they won't order. I usually have some of every product made that I am offering as wholesale, because soap takes minimum of 6 weeks to cure, hot process maybe a little less. If your wholesaler orders from you, they're not going to want to wait at least 6 weeks. So you need to have some in stock of everything you want to wholesale. They aren't going to wait. You may get some that will, but you need to make sure they understand and agree that they need to order 6 to 8 weeks in advance, or however you want to set it up. For me, it just works best to have products made in advance. Of course, lotion has a shelf life, so I usually don't do lotion until they order. That way it's nice and fresh, but that doesn't have a wait time like soap, so that's easy enough to do. I'm trying to think of what else I need to say. I can't think of anything else. I went over, what the customers expect, understanding that if you don't have it made in advance, you may not get their order unless you've, arranged with them that they know it's going to take 8 weeks. You also have to think about the shelf life of your product. Are they shelf stable? Kids like to pick things up, so if you're making cute things for kids and they're picking it up and setting it down, in one day, maybe 10, 20 times a day, how is that packaging going to hold up to all those fingers? If you're making candles and they tend to fade when in the sunlight, are your wholesalers going to be putting them in the front window where the sun is going to hit it all day? So there are things like that. I know what I forgot. Line sheets. You can get really, really fancy with line sheets, and I love the line sheets that have beautiful pictures and all the information underneath each one. And if you have a lot of time to do that or know someone that can do that for you, I highly recommend it. But if you're just starting out, and I'm not just starting out, but I'm still very, very simple when it comes to line sheets, yes, I want to do one with pictures, but that means I have to get professional pictures because that's not my forte. And putting it together is not my forte, so I tend to do what I'm good at and hire out what I'm not good at. So the line sheet is something I would want someone else to do. So in the meantime, I just stick with what works for me, and I'm going to try to show it to you. And it's very, very simple, believe me, but it works. And again, other than my very large orders that I make specialty products for, so they don't care about my line sheets because I'm making their product, they're not purchasing mine. Other than that, most of my wholesale accounts are boutiques. They're like, I have my products in pottery stores because they make soap plates, soap dishes, so they like to put the soap, stage it on their pottery. I have wholesale accounts that are boutiques, whether they're clothing or artists. They like to have some bath and body products in there for people that maybe aren't interested in buying their high-end paintings or their high-end clothing lines. So they're quick grab and go, lower priced items that they like to have in their boutiques. So this works for me. Very simple. I'm going to try to show it to you, but I will also include it in my notes. It's one sheet of paper. This is showing up backwards to me. I don't know if it'll show up backwards to you, but I have listed what I offer for wholesale, and I have the price. I have my website, I have my logo, I have all my information at the bottom, and it indicates that all the information about these products can be found on my website. So make sure you put your website on there. And that's it. I have order minimum $100. Private label may require minimum quantities. That is where I do require minimum quantities, is for private label, because I'm making it specially for them. It has their label on it. I can't just make these items, put the labels on, and put them on my shelf and then grab them as I get the orders. I do that for wholesale accounts. I can't do that for private label. So they may take longer to make, and I may require, and I do require, minimum quantities to make it worth my time. And then I put product details, and fragrance options are available online, because these people are going to want to see my products. I'm actually selling to them what I make. So if they go online, there's all my pictures, there's all the information, there's all the ingredient listing. So I don't get too fancy with my line sheets. As you can see, I just change the date at the top every year, add or delete products that I'm making or no longer making, and the prices. And they go online and use that as a catalog. They can call me, they can email me their order. They can order online, and then I'll give them the discount afterwards. Again, another project of mine is to do a separate wholesale website, but I haven't gotten there yet either. So I just do what I'm good at. I do what works for me. It's very simple. I want to get fancier, but so far haven't needed to, and really haven't had the time to do it. So I think that's it. Hopefully I got through everything I planned to. I will get the notes up within, a few days, and you all take care. Don't be afraid to reach out if you need something. I'm here to share. Bye.